Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Surfside Recovery Podcast. My name is Brian Licata, and we just wanted to let you guys know that if you or anyone is struggling with addiction, to please reach out to Surfside. You can give us a call at 609-709-4205 or visit us at surfside.org and all of our social media platforms. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Licata, Ian Couch, and the newly appointed, I'm not sure what your title is.
So I was expecting some grand...
well, I was going to, but then I realized I didn't know what your title is.
Director of Community Outreach and Recovery Coaching. Yeah, buddy.
Woo, congratulations, Nick. Woo, yay.
And as always, we have Andrew in the corner.
And
sitting there.
The beat master.
But today we're actually not allowing Andrew to watch the podcast. We have him facing the corner with a dunce cap on.
We also have Matt S. too. Matt S. Not Sherman, the other Matt S. He's our intern. So, Nick, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day, whether it was by choice or not by choice, to come do the podcast. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about. We talked about it a couple days prior. So, welcome to the show.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on.
So, do you have any questions for Nick?
So...
Wow, real exciting already, huh, guys?
So basically, as we are closing down 2000, how many episodes have we had?
This is number 36, actually.
For season 2?
Well, it's 36 total episodes. I think this is number 9, 10, or 11 for season 2, which is pretty cool because we started last February. Would have been the first episode. So we're like 10 months. 10 months in, and we got 36 episodes out.
Nice. Hold on, real quick before we do get into anything. A couple months ago, there was who's got the best hair on Surfside staff. Licata swore it was him. I think we need to put that to rest today.
You're saying I have the best. You're saying I have the best hair.
Always.
I like.
All right, so if you want,
I cut my hair like a week ago. No, actually, like 2 weeks ago. Did you remember when I showed you that big ding?
You buzzed up.
Oh man, because I've been cutting my own hair for forever, and the clipper I used, the cover came off, and as I was going up the back, I had a massive bald spot ding on the back. It's grown in. Luckily, I just wore hot for a couple days. Whatever.
Well, that'll definitely do it. So if we want to put it up to a vote,
yeah, we need to put it up to a vote.
Right, so in the comment section of this podcast, if you got 5 minutes into it, you can say Nick Geissler, Brian Licata. So Nick Geissler or Brian Licata for the best hair.
All right. So anyway, so as we close down, so I was asking about the podcast because I'm wondering if we're gonna wrap up season 2. And take a small hiatus through the holiday season. But as we wrap up 2019 and roll into 2020, so Surfside, what we've really kind of always been doing in the program is this like recovery coaching model where, we hire employees who have been in recovery and within boundaries and limitations, share their experience to help the residents kind of move through recovery. But what we've formally introduced based on demand from some families is we're now doing an actually recovery coaching program once guys graduate the program and once they move out. And this is not necessarily designed to be a forever thing. This is designed, for probably, I would say, somewhere between 3 to 6 months to help people transition, from, because if you think about it, right, guys go from like a residential treatment setting into Surfside. It is community-based, but at the same time, it is kind of a bubble. The longer they're with us, the slower that transition is into, quote unquote, the real world. But once they graduate, then they go into the real world. So this is still a way to kind of help them and support them through that transition, continued contact with the family, continued contact with the guys, some monitoring, mentoring, drug testing, and stuff like that. So I'm sorry. The background is that Nick has been with Surfside for quite a while now. Nick was our first outreach, community outreach guy. Has just kind of been with us. Nick went back to school, got his master's degree. Nick has been trained and certified as a family interventionist and is currently working on the LPC.
Yep.
Licensed professional counselor credential. So Nick got his master's degree. We wanted to make some changes. He was promoted to this new director position. We hired 2 other guys to do some outreach as well. Nick is going to help work with them. But Nick is also going to be heading up and overseeing the recovery coaching program. And ideally at some point he's doing the majority of the recovery coaching now, but I think at some point we'll probably end up hiring somebody at least for part-time to help with some of that stuff as well. So, Nick, that's the real intro for Nick. Nick, why don't you kind of talk about what recovery coaching is, pros, cons, if there are any cons, and just kind of,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this has been, the recovery coaching is something that has been identified, like Ian said, over the past, year or so that families have been asking for that, like, monitoring after the guys graduate Surfside. So it's really cool that, being a graduate of Surfside and kind of seeing those struggles firsthand once you get out of Surfside and, like, how to navigate and balance life now. So it's cool to be able to help the graduates move forward. And I think a lot of the positive stuff is, some of the big things and areas we've been talking with the graduates is like a lot of boundaries, like how to set boundaries with friends and families, and like balance your life.
And I think too, some of like what I don't know that a lot of people know is that recovery coaching has been. So out of Connecticut, there's a training, the C-CAR training, which has kind of been adopted as the training for recovery coaching. A little while back, we had a bunch of our staff trained. Were you trained, Brian? Oh, I don't think you were.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, because that was when you were on your way out. But we, so in recovery coaching has been kind of like pushed through the system. My opinion on it, when it comes to like statewide recovery coaching and some of those initiatives, is that people were in a panic with all the overdoses and what are we going to do with all these people, and they're clogging up the system. And I know, let's create this quick training and get people to kind of assist and help. My personal opinion also is that recovery coaching is sponsorship without 12-step recovery. And with a little bit of case management added in. It's super effective and can be super, super helpful if both parties are engaged. If it's just the coach and not the coachee. Is that a word? A coachee? Is that a word?
Sure, we'll go with that.
Client.
Beatley?
Student. Cool. Athlete. The athlete isn't engaged, then it's kind of worthless. But I think with our model, the way we're also engaging with family is like, if we have a guy who's transitioned and he's not actually engaging, I think that is very good to, to be able to report back to the families and help them understand what's going on and why he may not be engaging. And
and with that part is, the monthly communication with the families. It's not necessarily, giving a report back on their son, which, is part of it, but it's, if it is that part where, they're not engaging, it's like, how do we coach the family to continue to grow themselves, right? We're trying to help change the family system, and whether their son is moving with them, that's based on that, but, they still need to grow and they still need to recover themselves. So the family engagement is also a real huge component of it, which, I think it's special that we add that with our recovery coaching.
When our model's just different.
Yeah.
I mean, our model is not necessarily based on the CCAR training. It's based off of, clinical education. It's based on the intervention training that you've done. It's based on what I know to work and not to work after working in the field for 15 years. So I think it's actually more extensive than, just helping somebody get what they need.
Yeah. Which
is kind of the standard, CCAR model.
And it's also, right, like the graduates leave and we're talking about them, how now they're exposed to, real life, right, out of this bubble. But then so are the families, because in our model and while they're in Surfside, like they're having that constant contact by, our recovery specialist and our program director, continuing to educate them in this process. So it's also, I found the families have found it helpful because they still get that engagement and they're still being engaged so that they don't just slip back into their old patterns as well, with keeping those boundaries set and, how to build that new healthy relationship with their son, which is, important for both parties involved. So, yeah, man, it's been a special journey with them. And we do not necessarily focus solely on the 12-step. Like I said, we talk a lot more about like what is actually going on right now. Like, how are you balancing work? How are you balancing your meetings? How are you balancing sponsorship, time with your sponsor? Still growing that relationship with your family. And yeah, it's been, a lot of them have been very engaged and, they all seem to, as they graduate, want to continue with this recovery coaching as well. It's been met with open arms by them.
Yeah. So to shift gears a little bit, so we've gotten one of our viewers emailed me about a topic. It's a mother, and she would like to know more about the 12 steps. And I've been kind of thinking about this because we could talk for hours and hours and hours about this. I think it's also really important that she goes back and watches the interview with your mom and does some Al-Anon and stuff like that. But so I guess from your guys' perspective, two questions I would ask. What was the hardest thing about the 12-step process overall? And what was the most beneficial thing about it?
For me, the hardest part would be internalizing the first step, which, if I had to make a guess, took about 6 years.
Okay, so explain what is the first step.
So the first step is admitting that you're powerless and that your life is unmanageable. And pretty much what that means, as you explained it to me, as that animation video that we did also explains, it's not that I can't use, it's that I'm going to use, right? Meaning that, like, if I don't replace something with the drug, I'm going to go back to it. Like, once I stop, I can't stay stopped. And once I stop, I can't stay stopped.
And when you start.
And when I start, I can't stop. That's it. And that, I think, took a period of, 5 or 6 years from the first treatment center to the last one for me to really internalize that. So I think that was definitely the hardest part and the one that takes the longest.
Yeah, I think for me, it was step 2. Because I didn't believe that I was insane, right? Higher power will restore us to sanity. I didn't think anything was wrong with the way I thought, which ties in, back to step 1 is like believing that, the mental obsession
is real.
Yeah. So it was once I someone was like, dude, do you really think that stealing from your parents was sane? It's like, oh, no, actually it's not. That's pretty insane. And I need my sanity restored. But I think the one positive thing that working the steps and that it gave me was how to buy into the process. I was always so concerned with the outcome and how do I get there as quick as possible. and cutting corners and manipulating things to get what I want. But like actually taking the time and like step one is step one for a reason, you know, and not worried about like recovery and sobriety at the end. Like if I work these steps, that's going to be there day in, day out.
Yeah. It's like work.
Yeah.
Like if you show up at the end of the week, you'll get a paycheck.
Yeah.
If you don't show up, you're not going to get a paycheck.
Yeah.
So what the question was, the best thing?
Yeah.
I like what you said. I think the best thing for me is like the freedom that it gave me, like to be able to literally do whatever I want, whenever I want. Obviously,
that doesn't mean get high.
Yeah, obviously within reason. But I'll give an example. Like the other day, I was with my dad, and we were looking at plane tickets to go down to Florida to see my grandma. I'm like, man, if I want to go, I can book it, you know. And for a period of time, you know, I didn't live, like my life did not exist outside of a 2-mile radius in the city, like in Camden. I didn't go 2 miles away from like the center of the city. So to be able to like look, maybe plan a trip, you know, even like with the holiday season coming up, like being able to buy Christmas gifts and like to actually just buy them, you know, like being able to buy them for other people, you know, that never happened before. So same questions to you. Hardest thing and the best part.
I think hardest thing was not initially. I think hardest thing is now. Mm-hmm. You know, continuing to stay engaged with 12-step recovery. I think. I also kind of think that's the. You know, we talked about it a little bit, Brian, when your mom was on. You know, like parents, once their kids start doing well, they stop engaging. You know, it's like the. You know, people tend to forget we had problems. People forget tattoos hurt, so they get another one. People forget childbirth hurt, so they have another one. Like, you know, it's just kind of like a standard process. We were almost like built to forget pain. And, you know, so I think staying engaged long term has been more challenging.
Do you think that it's more challenging now because it's happening to you right now, and when you got sober was such a long time ago?
Dude, when I got sober, I was so tired of being a loser. I was willing to do whatever anyone told me to do. I questioned things and I was kind of a pain in the butt, but like at the end of the day, at the end of the day, yeah, I was just tell me what to do. Like I was just ready to be a different person. I think in terms of rewarding, so like by the time I was 5 years sober, all of my dreams had come true. Mm-hmm. And I remember like actually sitting back and thinking, shit, all my dreams came true. Now what? So I like planned some others. Mm-hmm. And then by the time I was 10 years sober, all those came true. So now it's like, am I 14 years sober? 13. How many years have I been sober? 14?
I'm not sure. I wasn't there.
So this year I'll be 15 years sober. My next set of dreams and goals. Oh, jeez. My next set of dreams and goals have not come true yet. So I've got to continue to work on some of those. But living in a van is one of them. I got to work on my wife with that one.
Yeah, you're not allowed to leave like that. Just saying.
So, but you know, I think like 12-step recovery taught me how to work hard for things I want. You know, I was always under the impression that because I am Ian, I should get stuff. Like, I just didn't understand. You know, it's like, and I struggle, you know, I've complained to Nick about this, and, you know, like, I've struggled with, like, our employees, because everybody wants everything right away. Like, everybody wants to become a director with no experience. And it's like my first job working in the mental health field was at a youth center. My second job, was that Act One? Was that the school? My second was at working at this school with mentally, called the New School in Montpelier in Vermont, with these mentally ill kids, like the worst of the worst in the state. Like having to restrain kids, being bit, being spit on, like the worst. Then my first job in addiction, I worked for 3 years at a detox, and 2 of those years I worked third shift, 11 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning for like $10 an hour. And it's like the one thing I really like about that guy Gary Vee. Like he talks about like eating shit in the beginning. And it's not necessarily that people have to eat shit, but it's like I needed to learn, and 12-step recovery taught me, which is kind of like what you were saying. Like it taught me how to start at the bottom and work hard for what I got, knowing that like there was going to be a reward, but it was going to take some time to get there. And it's like we see it with so many of our residents. Like they come in and they don't understand why they're not getting promoted to CEO or executive director, of the bagel shop right away. And it's just like,
you just started yesterday.
You haven't been able to hold a job for 90 days. Yeah. I mean, who's going to want you to take over the company when you can't hold a job for 90 days? Like it just doesn't work like that. And, so, yeah.
So to answer that question though, suggestions for the mom, right? How to engage with 12 steps.
Go to Al-Anon.
Yeah. Find that group, find the network. Go through the steps.
And most won't. I mean, most won't. Because I think a lot of people, in my experience for years, and I don't know that this particular mom that we're talking about is in this case, but most won't do it because they don't actually want to know for themselves. They want to know how to help their kid.
I think it's that, and I also think it's that fear of being judged, like putting themselves out there in a meeting. Now these people know what's going on in our family.
Yeah.
And that was a situation with my family, in the town I grew up in. It's like very hush hush for a while until, it gets to the point where something has to change. So don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. Rock it out.
What sort of closing thoughts, or people who would need to find you, how can they find you?
How can they find me? Nikki G? Oh, man.
Because you're the guy I put everyone in touch with.
You do. Very often, too. I appreciate it. My cell phone is always open to phone calls, which is, can I throw that number out there? Yeah. 908-347-0345. Or you could email me, Nick Geissler at surfside.org. And hopefully we can help point you guys or girls in the right direction. That's the bottom line, is helping the next person.
Amen to that. Well, thanks for coming out. I believe next week we have a friend of yours coming on the show.
It's a possibility.
We might have a guest next week, or we might just ask somebody else who works here. I don't know. I looked at his name. Common Sense. Somebody from Common Sense.
Common Sense is it? Oh, Tim. Yeah.
Tim may or may not be coming on the show.
That's kind of a big deal. He'd be coming all the way down from Saratoga Springs,
New York.
Yeah.
There you have it. We're Interstate Podcast. We'll catch you next week. Thank you. As always, if you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out to Surfside. You can give us a call at 609-709-4205 or get us on the web at surfside.org.